Good Sunday morning, folks. I wanted to share a little bit about my testimony. Some people don't know. I spent 16 years in prison. I was not guilty of the crime that I committed, but I did do wrong. And it was originally a misdemeanor, as it should have stayed. But when I got out, um, I I prayed from day one that someday I'd be reacquainted with my sons. And one of the dreams did come true with Jamie, my oldest son, who lives in Parma. In 2020, it was May 5th of 2020. I coded twice and had two strokes. And they called my sister and told my sister they didn't know if I was going to make it. They called her while they were doing CPR on me. And this was at Grant Hospital. And I remember hearing my sister cry, and I must have been in and out of it, but I did end up dying twice that day. And I got to see a glimpse of heaven. I remember like looking up, and I seen two doors. One was a dark burgundy door on the left, and one was a white, uh, pinkish, radiant light on the right that was heart shaped. And I was sucked through that door, and the man handed me a paper that said righteousness. And like I said before, I thought I was everything but righteous because I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't live the Christian life that I should have. And, my life was going to change pretty much forever. I spent quite a bit of time in the hospital. I was in an induced coma for, I think, 10 days. And then, after I regained somewhat consciousness, I didn't have the movement of my legs and my hands at first. I remember I could feel the doctor touch my hands, but I couldn't move my fingers. But one day I moved my fingers and I grabbed his hand, but I still couldn't walk. And they had the breathing tube in me, so I couldn't talk at all because I had trouble breathing. And it was a scary situation, but I remember praying and asking God to please, before I die, I want to be reacquainted with my kids. And my oldest son reached out with me. I guess he was watching my videos for years or for a few years. And one video, I left my email on there. And this was after I got out of the hospital. He said, "You might not remember me, but I'm your son, Jamie." And I mean, you don't forget your kids. I don't care who you are. I wasn't sure if I was going to respond back to him. I didn't know what to say. I was really embarrassed I was not there for him for so many years. But I did reach out to him. I sent him an email. I said, "Yes, I remember you." And I gave him my phone number. He gave me his phone number. And I ended up calling Jamie. I think it was that night, probably. Um, and I talked to him for quite a bit of time, and since then I talk to him every day on FaceTime. I mean on Messenger, FaceTime. He don't have an Apple iPhone like I do, so we do the videos on Messenger. And he's turned out to be a fine young man. He's been dating the same girl since he was I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old, I guess. Um, um, he's 39 now, and she's like 44. Um, um, she's special needs. She's got problems with her vision. My son is autistic, but functional autistic. So I'm so proud of him, no matter what. Um, I was not very happy with some of the abuse that took place while I was incarcerated. That took place at that house, mostly mental abuse. Um, but it is so important that we learn how to forgive. Um, as hurtful as it is, and even the way my ex-wife's mother treated me, and lied about me and so forth, I had to learn how to forgive her. I've always said if it wasn't for the mother, I would have probably still been married to my ex-wife. Um, but now my ex-wife is kind of turning into her mother, and it's kind of sad because um, her mother was very hateful and not the nicest person in the world. But why I sat in the hospital though, to go back to that, I had a chaplain come in my room when I was in the rehab section, which was still part of Ohio Health. And he said, God's got plans for your life. And my mother used to tell me the same thing, and I still sometimes wonder what the plans were. I'm going to school now full time. I would like, I'm 62, but I would like to still work with addicts if possible. Because, you know, that, you know, when I call it a disease, it's more of a mental health disease. I feel um, because you can die from the abuse of drugs, but nobody can force you to pick up the drugs. It's a choice you have to make, just like sex addiction. And they're both, are pretty much the same, except they hurt people a different way. But sex offenders will get bashed, threatened, but drug offenders don't. And they also abuse people, stealing and so forth. Just like these two people I know that stole off of me and hope for the community. The police are looking for them. Um, and they definitely violated my trust because they stole from me and I don't have it to steal from. They walked right out with my laptop and so forth. So I had to forgive them, but that doesn't mean I'm ever going to trust them again or I want them in my house. So I would like to work with people like that do have addictions that, um, are willing to give it a shot to change. Um, so many people end up back in prison. I shouldn't say so many, but some people end up back in prison because they can't get a good grip on their addiction. And as hard as the addiction may be, um, you have to learn how to overcome. Um, and every day I wake up, I listen to my Michael W. Smith music, Stephen Curtis Chapman music, Jars of Clay, the Hoppers, um, and then I pray. I start each day off that way. And I still make mistakes, don't get me wrong, but I have a handle on life more than I ever had. And that's why, I want to be the father that Jamie still deserves. I want to be there for him. You know, um, you know, his mother and I may never be back together. We may never even be necessary friends. But it's not about her. It's about my son, who did nothing wrong. He was the innocent bystander during all this. So I'd like to see, where this relationship will go. I'm not planning on moving from Columbus, but if I ever have to go into assisted living, um, my sister would like me to be closer to my son. Um, you know, uh, but you know, time will tell on what's really going to happen. But I should have never survived the stroke or the coding because that was I had 4 heart attacks prior to that. I had a slight stroke prior to that. And nobody really knows what caused it. Stress, I guarantee, is never helpful. And sometimes I'll stress myself out because I keep thinking about, boy, if I could just change this or change that, when some things are just beyond your control. But I have such an awesome son, though, that I am very proud of him. Um, he does his best every day to make it. Um, so, you know, he needs to feel positive about himself and good about himself. I just wished the mental abuse wouldn't have happened while I was gone, because Jamie was a very playful young boy, um, and very energetic and very loving. But circumstances sometimes can change, the way we think or the way we trust people, or if we trust people anymore. And I learned you can't trust just anybody. You have to get to know them before you can trust them. And you don't have to invite everybody into your house like I used to, because that's one of the biggest mistakes that there is. But when we put Christ first, everything else will fall in place. Folks, just remember never to give up the faith. Put your trust in God, and things will work out. Have a great day, everybody.